Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another new figure showcase, where we'll take a quick look at the newest figure being added into my collection. And today we're jumping back into the Trek universe, taking a look at Lieutenant Tom Paris by EXO-6 from their ongoing Star Trek Voyager line. And this essentially leaves us with just two members of the command crew to be released, being B'Elanna and Neelix. Now look, this is also going to be a relatively quick review as he is a pretty standard release from EXO-6. So if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, you know that Star Trek Voyager holds a special place for me in the pantheon of Trek shows. I do think there was a lot of untapped potential in the show, maybe a product of its time, but it was still a really good overall storyline and a very likable crew with some great episodes. And Tom Paris was an interesting character. I think, like a lot of the crew members, he had an interesting backstory, being the son of an admiral and essentially a convicted criminal, being plucked from a penal world by Janeway to help with tracking down the Maquis. And it was a story that carried through the series, so they did do a decent job developing him over I think it was about 7 years. And he had some great adversarial relationships, sometimes with Chakotay, a relationship with B'Elanna, and an amazing friendship with Harry. So decent work for definitely what I would say is a secondary character. But we're here to look at the figure, so let's look at the full package we're getting here from EXO-6. And you'll notice off the bat that this is one of the more standard releases, coming in at about 175 plus shipping. Not cheap by any standard, but definitely less expensive than most licensed figures we get these days. But as a set, besides the figure, you're getting a small selection of alternate hands, the standard display base with the hollow pads, and then the standard set of accessories that we've gotten in prior releases. So let's take a closer look at those accessories, and we'll start with the hands, which in person have a really nice paint app to them and texture. Frankly, nothing unique here though. We've gotten probably the same set of hands with every other set of figure from EXO-6, essentially designed to hold all of the accessories. But they did do a great job matching the paint apps and the color scheme to the figure skin tone, but nothing revolutionary here. Next set of grouped accessories are essentially the standard loadout that all the Starfleet officers come with, including the pad, the tricorder with holster, and the phaser with holster. So it's another part where EXO-6 does an excellent job. Pad is nicely detailed and includes a sticker showing the Delta Flyer specs, which is a nice touch and sets it apart from the other versions of the accessory we've gotten in the past. And then the tricorder is nicely done with a magnetic setup to both hold the device closed and create the open look. I do appreciate the use of magnets that EXO-6 has on these, with the holster also attaching to the figure's jumpsuit magnetically. And then you get the phaser, which again, nice accessory that slips into a holster. If you have any of the previous Voyager releases, this isn't anything new, but it's all done well. So now let's get into the heart of this review, which is the figure. And we'll start with the sculpt, which is really what's setting these figures apart at this point, because they do look very similar with the jumpsuits. And look, I've been accused of being overly positive with this line. And sometimes I do feel like I give EXO-6 a pass, because I feel like the product we get is pretty good given the cost. And in the past, I have felt like the sculpts have been better in hand. Let me start with the positive here. It's not a bad sculpt. There's some good detail work here and some great paint applications that do replicate some nice skin tones. The eyes are okay, at least in this release. There's no dreaded misalignment. Now the issue for me is that this feels very generic. I don't know that I see Tom Paris here. And I've seen people say that the actor who portrayed him doesn't have any really distinguishing characteristics or features, which is an interesting take and maybe an accurate one. But even if that were true, this is one of those cases where honestly it feels like you'll only really know who this is supposed to be by having him standing with the rest of the crew. Unfortunately, the sculpt for me is just on the weaker side. It's very generic feeling and a little disappointing, to be honest. With these figures, the sculpt again is really what sets them apart and makes or breaks them, and here, honestly, I just don't see the likeness. By contrast, I thought Harry Kim was a big improvement from the proto, and I think he did end up looking like the character. But Tom, I think this is just a bit of a misstep. Now, the rest of the figure is great. EXO-6 does a great job with the uniforms and the detailing from the rank pips down to the comm badge. Uniform also has a really nice feel to it with great fabric selection, and it's always tailored very well. Posability with this line has been pretty outstanding as well, with the double jointed elbows. None of that has been an issue at all with previous releases, and it's not an issue with this release. Swapping out the hands, also pretty straightforward. So you get a very nice figure overall. So where do I land on this guy? The positive, we have a Tom Paris, and no one else is going to make this character ever. It's just not happening. But the bad, it really feels like just a red shirt to me. Unfortunately, I don't think the sculpt is there, and it's a shame when you look at the previous release, which was that incredible Locutus. This one just isn't on the same level. So for me, I'm glad to have a Tom Paris, but disappointed that the sculpt didn't pan out. And look, it's not that it's a simple figure and I'm going to give it a pass, because if you saw my review on the Hot Toys Neo from Matrix Resurrections, that's a clear example of a very simple basic figure release with incredible tailoring, but what really elevates that is the amazing work on the sculpt. So it can be done. But again, for this release, kind of a mixed bag, which does stink a little bit. I never set out to do a negative review. Like one of you mentioned, sometimes maybe I'm too positive, but with this one, I just wasn't feeling it as much, unfortunately. I'll still be looking forward to picking up more EXO-6 figures and completing this crew, but it's clear that some pieces like Locutus, like the upcoming Data and Krug, those they seem to get more attention, and at least it seems to be that EXO-6 puts more effort into them. I could be wrong, but that's just how it feels. So that was a really quick look at Lieutenant Tom Paris in 6-scale form from Star Trek Voyager. Let me know your thoughts, and look, maybe I'm being too hard on this one. I don't think I am, but please feel free to correct me if you think otherwise. Maybe I was just having a bad day at work. And as always, listen, thanks for watching, and if you are enjoying the content, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.